Services and Insights. So let me go ahead with the meeting agenda. So today we are going to talk about API integration services. We are going to talk about insights and its capabilities and how we could enable API integration services and insights in a business environment and in practical environments. And then we are going to take Q&A for any questions that you might have. So a little bit about the UiPath Denver chapter. We are based in Denver, Colorado. We are an online, offline community where we have monthly, bi-monthly events on, RPA capabilities, and we have RPA-centered events. And we talk about what developments and any issues that you might have. We also communicate in our UiPath community page, and we also have a Slack channel, which I will share shortly. And our organizers are, we have Saideep Kandibara, who couldn't attend today. He is the UiPath chapter lead. And we have Tracy Dixon today, who's a 3-time UiPath MVP and operational excellence and partnership lead at Centric Consulting. And myself, I'm also a co-UiPath Denver chapter lead. I'm also a machine learning consultant at Ashling Partners. Let me hand over the floor to Tracy to give a quick introduction about herself.
So I don't know that there's much more to say. I'd love to talk about automation. I started learning about automation in 2018 and love to have every opportunity to tell people more about how to get back their time and through the basics of automation, how to automate the things that they don't want to be doing so they can spend more time doing what they enjoy. So happy to talk to you guys today about integration services.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tracy. I'm super excited to learn how to integrate integration services in UiPath and its capabilities. And super excited to continue this conversation. And just to give you a reminder, please forward your questions into our chat. So once we are done with our presentation deck, Tracy and I will be able to answer any of the questions that you might have. Awesome. So Tracy, let me hand over the floor to you. If you want to share your screen, you can go ahead.
So I'll probably walk through the few slides here first and then talk through a demo of what you guys can see in the platform related to these. So you want to go ahead and move to the next slide?
Sure.
All right. So I don't know how many of you guys have taken a look at integration services or have heard about this, but it's one of the platform's newest offerings. And so why do you care about integration service? So it's not just for those of you that may be on a project that's specifically focused on integration. It doesn't have to be that at all. You don't have to be a database person or a data and analytics oriented person. Integration service actually gives us the ability to connect to platforms, to services in a much easier way than we could do so before, and allows UiPath, the platform, to be used as a tool where you can bring lots of different applications or platforms. Think Salesforce and Microsoft and Expensify and really anything that you want to bring in. You can bring all of those together and connect to them much more easily than you could in the past. And then even go beyond that for things that aren't listed in here and create your own custom connections. That's a previewed feature currently, but that should be coming out here shortly in roughly April. So that's why it's really cool that you may go out there and look for an activity that doesn't exist. Now you have options to go bring your own in, or at least interact with that application, and you don't need to have a specific activity focused on that. So that's why you might be really interested in integration service. If you've ever wanted to automate with something behind the scenes using an API, which is the quicker method versus UI automation, and to do so very quickly and connect to it quickly and have a lot of the initial setup steps done for you. So if we can move on to the next slide. All right, so what is integration service about? And you can go ahead and click through so these appear on the screen. So again, it's not just about data integration or integrating one app with another. It is a place that you can bring your connections to lots of different apps all together and then access them in your automation. So we'll see a little bit more detail on that later on when I show you in the demo. So you're able to set up a connection of your own. There's also a large and growing library of built-in connectors that are there already. And once a connection is established, it's there, and it's just as simple as pulling a drop down for you to connect to that in Studio, in the application or the automation that you're building. So super easy. That gives you access to all of the triggers that come with that API. So instead of you seeing an activity set that may just be a few of the activities handpicked for folks that are automating, now you have everything that the API has to offer. And it's just a question of what you want to use in your automation. So once you set this up, you no longer have to be limited. You can go through and find the APIs or the methods and the nooks and crannies that may not be set up as activities and still use them. So you're not limited in any way. In addition to that, it can be pretty intense to set up a new service. I know personally, one of the first projects that I worked on in 2019, I had to set up a custom activity, and I swear it took at least a week to even figure out how to connect to it. The reason being that client had a custom application that we needed to interact with, and had some complex objects where there was no way around it. I had to create custom activities that would integrate with that custom app. There was only the one like it for that client in the world. So it took a really long time in order to do that, to figure out how to register with the app, how to authenticate, what my automation needed to do each time. There was a call back and forth. And then it was a very painful automation process to set up each thing that I needed to interact with in a custom way, and NuGet packages, and just a whole list of things that are pretty technical and pretty difficult. The integration service takes the difficulty out of that, which is awesome. So I've been really excited to go in there and set up connections to a lot of the different apps. It opens up the possibility for me to now have time to automate some things that were further in the backlog that I want for myself, for productivity for myself, or for work. So if you'll go on to the next slide. So a connector is and I'll show you on screen, a special link that you have individually to a given platform. So you'll see a lot of the built-in items like Salesforce or Outlook, that type of thing. The interaction with that app will only be through APIs on the back end. So you can set up that initial authentication. Typically, you'll put in some type of authenticating information. And then with Connector Builder, which is what will be coming up later in the year, if something's not on that list, you now have the ability with some schema information about that API. I'll show you that as well, how you can bring that in, and it does a lot of the work for you. So I know that they're constantly developing on that, but it should be out in a few months, and I've been part of the preview. If any of you guys are interested in this sooner, you can go in and sign up for the Connector Builder Insider Preview, which is at insider.uipath.com, to get access and to try it out for yourself. So you guys can see a little bit of a bit of the Connector Builder that we'll go through here shortly. On the left there, you can see every single method. Each of those is a given entity, and there'll be a list of methods that are available. So it takes the number of activities that you have custom built and ready to interact with, from a much smaller number where there are handpicked ones that people assume would be what would be used primarily, and it makes it all of them. So then you have full functionality, whether it's pulling information, whether it's creating things. So say I want to pull in my time information in my calendar and I want to go create a bunch of events, can easily do that. So it can be a back and forth, and all of that, that singular, the way to interact is handled for you. Now I can do that the same way with Outlook. I could do the same thing in Gmail. It gives me a central place to handle things, and just for efficiency purposes, often you can do so because you have all of this stuff in one place in the same manner, and not have to do a whole lot of customization app to app. So that's kind of the beauty of integration services, that you can take a lot of things that may not be super alike to start with, and handle them in a more efficient way in one place. So I know, like cloud services, for example, a lot of us have work at companies where they have things in AWS, things in Azure, things in Google Cloud. Using the integration service, you could come up with a standard way to handle certain things and certain tasks among all three of them, but all in a central way. So that's the overarching thing. Any questions on that? Feel free to speak up throughout, type it in the chat, or to go off mute. All right. So who is this for? Once you know that the standard set of steps, there's not a whole lot that you have to do. So certainly, it can be for developers, but really anybody can pull a new connection in and then make it accessible even to their whole organization. So someone else may have built something that you can access, as long as you're given access to it once the initial setup is done, which is actually pretty simple. It really takes care of a lot of the technical difficulty for you, and makes the ability to use a new application, that it's a much shorter process than it used to be some time ago. So really any application, you want to think through those that have an API first, or have some type of API initially. That connector builders focus just on REST APIs. So an application that you'd like to interact with, or that is difficult to interact with as it is currently, without built-in activities or without a lot of them, where it's easy to use. So look for those, and then you can try out setting up the integration to that platform here, either through creating a connection of your own, or you can look and see if it's on the list of built-in applications, because that list is getting bigger all the time. Every time I look at the screen, it seems they've released some more. All right. I think that's our last slide. Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Tracy.
So let me share my screen. All right. Are you able to see the integration service on screen now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So you guys can see now, this is just my personal tenant. These are all of the built-in services currently in integration service. There are quite a lot. So by clicking any of these and setting up authentication information and basics that it would walk you through, you can access all of the full suite of APIs behind the scenes. All of the authentication is taken care of, and it's just a matter of dragging and dropping, typically a scope type activity. And you no longer have to worry about usernames or passwords or any of that. It's all taken care of there. And you can even set up multiple. I know I've interacted with multiple on the Microsoft or Google side, and you're given a drop down that you're able to set up a default as well. So whenever you look at any of these, see, I'll pick Microsoft Vision here. You have the ability to add the connection here. And so I'll show, let's see, go to Microsoft Teams. So let me remove that here, and we'll set up a new one. So to go in and create a new connection, this is going to set up my ability to use activities and to connect with this application. Just for those of you that may not be like an administrator in your environment, it may cause, we'll say it on screen, but it may cause some type of agreement to be sent or some type of approval, depending on your environment, to your admin. So let's go in and add a connection. I'm not sure why that's popping over there. Move that. So for this particular connection, it requires a scope that's already filled in completely for me. All of the scope information that I would need to interact with Teams. I'm sure it's interacting with the Microsoft graph behind the scenes. And so I click connect here. And each of these are a little bit different as far as the built-ins. Usually it's a pretty limited amount of information. Usually something along the lines of username and password. And then in this case, it was also a scope activity. So I just entered my username and password for this environment. Well, I thought I entered it. Let's try this again. It's got a space on the end. All right, this can handle dual authentication. So it just sent the authentication to my phone. I can approve that here. And in this case, there wasn't a requirement like a pop-up to ask about my environment in particular. So admin hasn't required that I go through them to authenticate. So now that I want to do something with Teams and an automation, I'll be able to just drag the team scope down. I'll have, in this case, I only have default, so I don't have to worry about a drop down, and it will automatically have that connection there and use this connection, which has my username and password information in it as the scope of my activities. So pretty simple. In the case that there is an administrative requirement, there'll be a pop-up and it will say, hey, we need to ask your administrator about these number of things. Do you want to continue? So it won't send anything without your consent. You could choose, depending on what it is, you could look at it and decide you want to move forward with that, with the request to the administrator, or that you want to hold off if you think it's something that they may not approve, or you want to discuss it with them first. Either way. So this does give you ability, like Outlook, for example. You may have done some UI automation with Outlook. This is not going to be using any type of application specific to the machine. So whatever I'm automating with as far as Teams goes, I don't have to have any of these applications installed there locally. It's not doing anything with the UI. It's going directly to the cloud. So it's sending information based on whatever activity I choose, but there's no application requirement with any of these on the machine that you're automating with. So I'll pause there again. Any questions on any of that? All right. So if any of you guys want to learn more, I know a lot of us have Microsoft products or use Microsoft Office. You can type in Graph Explorer or Microsoft Graph. This is the suite of APIs that's behind the scenes for really everything that we do in Office. So you can see the type of functionality that you would be able to access under each of these areas. So things like OneDrive or OneNote or Teams, everything is listed here where you could find out whether or not, particular functionality is there that would be worth setting up a connection for you. And here at the beginning is the basics of authentication and authorization. So if not for this, if not for having integration services, this whole page is a series of steps that you would have to create on your own, which I have done for sure in the past, that can be rather lengthy, where you're going through, you have to go to Azure and create an application just for this connection that's registered. You have to set a number of calls to get authorization. Normally, that's using the OAuth 2 standard, which involves an initial authorization, a response back, and then a request for a token and a response back at minimum, which if you're creating those individually can definitely take some time. And then you have all of these pieces and the calls that you have to provide. So you can understand this is just the first of that multi-step series, back and forth, consent, and so on. There's a lot to do if you're doing this individually on your own. So they definitely have done a good job of taking the hard work out of all of this initial setup and giving us access to a whole lot more in place. So you guys might see, for those of you that are involved in the preview, you might have this already. And for those that might think they might want to access it, you can again go to insider.uipath.com and sign up for Connector Builder. So whenever you want to add to this list, you can do so. So all I did was click here to get to this next screen, and I can create a new connector here. What you need in order to do that is an API definition file of some sort, either that or a URL. And on that, in the file or the URL, you need to have the schema for that REST API. So Swagger, you might hear it called Swagger or just the REST schema in general, but you need a file of the information that details out all of the things that are part of that API. So I'm going to pull that up real quick. I'm going to pull up a given file. All right. And there are instructions online as well if you don't have something like this on how to attempt with Postman to create something like this. Just waiting for this file to open up. All right. It's still thinking about it. Whenever that comes up, it will import all of that information from the API in. So there we go. So I'm pulling in something called OpenAir, which is a part of the NetSuite and Oracle line, and it's not listed there as having a connector already. I'm pulling in the sandbox information and just pressing continue. So it automatically reads in all of this stuff. It just read through that definition of this OpenAir API. And I can look now at what's included in the REST API. Here are all of the things that I should be able to do now in the future where there was no connection created. So previously, I would have had to make an HTTP call, go out and find the details in the documentation, copy this in, change endpoints, all of that stuff. So it's much easier, obviously, to have this all set up for me than to have to do that separately where I don't have all the information there. So it did not delete my previous one. I can pull up the prior. So you press create and it pulls all of that information in there. So I'll pull the prior one up that I've got. Where are you, OpenAir? So in Studio, I'm going to pull this over on screen. So you pretty much just click through and click complete on that. And now in Studio, this gives me access to the ability to directly connect. So the first thing that you want to do in order to connect to anything in the integration service is to make sure that the reference package is there. So you just go to official and type in connector builder, or at least connector. And you have connector builder there. So you pull that reference in, which would be required for doing anything with the integration service. And so the older version, I know that the current version, I believe it relies on the older version, you require a scope for a scope activity in addition to all of these that you put these in. The current version no longer requires the scope activity. So this is a newer version of Connector Builder. So if I want to interact, all I do is pull the activity over, and it's just a matter of selecting one in the drop down, the connector that I want to use for this given activity. In this case, I have the REST API there, so pretty straightforward. The connection is already unique. So now I have everything set up, authenticated with that environment. In that case, it's the sandbox environment to my company's instance of OpenAir. And in this case, I'm listing records. It lists the objects that are available that you guys saw on that right-hand side that I can then interact with further. So it makes it obviously much quicker. In a few minutes, you can connect fully to a different platform just by having that definition file that a lot of times you can get from a given developer, and then you can go on to do things in more detail based on that. So any questions on that? All right, the last thing that I wanted to show you was if in the case, once it lets me drag it over. In the case that you don't have integration service or are not familiar, each of you have the ability to create activities with a library currently where you may have to do further setup of the authentication, that type of thing, but certainly easier to do than having to just start from a blank slate. So this is available, the ability to set up a new service as part of the library functionality. So whenever you have the choice to create a new project, you want to make sure to choose library. So when you do that, you also have the ability here to connect, same thing, a file or a link, and to set that up here. It won't have that central integration service, but we can pull in at least the details of that activity. All right, so in this case, we'll import the file here, and you can create a library even without the integration service directly. You click load. And it also here in the Studio app will read through that schema definition and should pull in everything that you expect. Namespace, it puts in there automatically based on the file. I don't recommend changing that. At least not at the beginning. I know I had issues with that. It didn't necessarily care for me changing the namespace. So just if you're a beginner, I would recommend keeping that the same as it was prior. And so this is entirely separate from the integration service, which is more having access to platforms in one place in the cloud. This is local, where you're pulling in the definition for a given API that either you have a link for to that schema or a file for. It will actually create custom library activities that I'll see that will say, just based on what I have on screen, it will be specific activities focused on attachments or contacts or projects, that type of thing. So it will sit here and think about this for a little while, and those will appear on the left there. So if we have time, I'll show you what you can expect for any of the local packages that you build. Well, maybe it's coming up on screen. So after that, all you do is save it. It will save as a library, which you can save locally with a custom path, or you can save it and publish it up to Orchestrator so everyone can have access to it. Any questions on any of that? All right, so hopefully if you guys are I don't know how many of you are very technical, but the whole purpose of this is whether you're technical or not, to give you access to functionality and activities that you didn't have access to start with. So it's taking a lot of the need to be super technical away. So if you understand the basic principles of getting to an API and you've got the necessary requirements, so username and password, at least sometimes a token, that type of thing, you're able to then move forward without having to have in-depth knowledge of APIs. So Sharon, if you want to take it away for insights, I can, I'll show you the eventual creation of the activities.
Absolutely. And I think I do have one question on this very interesting integration services. So when we make connections, is it the same approach for on-prem and cloud? Do they have the same approach?
As far as I know, the service is available on both sides, but I'll verify that to make sure I am using the cloud here for sure.
Sure.
This what I just showed you. You do have the ability. This is not specifically integration services. The creation of the connector and the library, or well, the local connection in the library, that is for sure available regardless of cloud. But I'll look up whether or not you can use integration services and Orchestrator in an on-prem instance.
Wonderful, thank you. Because this just rang a bell. We are developing a document understanding model, and the client is completely going on-prem for everything, the OCR services and the extractions. And to get the data, I was thinking integration service is a great tool to encapsulate the data that is being fed into the document understanding model. So that's, once again, it's a wonderful approach, Tracy. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts and insights with us today.
Sure. And it happened to just show up now. So I figured I'd show on screen. Here are
sure.
the now custom activities that are all created that I could interact with that are in a library. So I can, save and create something as a sample here, but all of these have the details built in of what's required for each of the calls. Certainly much easier than having for me to go look up some of the details of each of these calls would take an inordinate amount of time. So much more likely to get these things accurate whenever all of the required fields for the activity are there, when you can set up everything from the start. So it gave me that whole application suite, which is a whole lot of activities for all of the areas that it offers just by importing that definition. So pretty cool.
Sure thing. Thank you so much once again, Tracy. And let me quickly share our next topic, which is UiPath Insights. Let me give you a quick overview of what the Insights is in UiPath, and we'll see a small short video, and then I'll take some questions, and you can ask questions throughout the chat as always. So how did UiPath integrate Insights? So if you're a business user, a developer, a person in the business side or the development side, you would always get these questions asked by vendors and clients on how to measure the success rate of an automation. So you develop, you send, for example, if you do document understanding, which I specify in, we always want to know the success rate, the pass-through rate of an automation. How many documents go into Action Center? What's the success rate of the OCR, the document understanding model, the machine learning extractor? So we had limited visibility into these RPA operations, and we didn't know the metrics to define success. And we needed this to advise our stakeholders on the ROI of an automation, because that's very critical for a business use case. So that's where UiPath Insights come into play. Today, I will be giving you a quick overview of Insights, which is the UiPath's analytics service. So what's Insights? Insights is a web application that serves as a platform for data modeling and analytics using a combination of business metrics and operational insight, like what your robot performs, what the orchestrated time is, or in case of document understanding, the pass-through rate. We have preloaded templates as well as user-defined dashboards that I'm going to show you at the end of this topic that help visualize company data across desired matrices. And it enables you to discover new analytic insights, track performances, performance indicators, KPI indicators, and alert errors. So if we see here the true impact of RPA on your business, you can measure your RPA performance, calculate ROI, see your KPI performances, have shareable reports across platforms, and have a program-wide transparency. So to give you an insight, again, on Insights, you could see here a small dashboard on how the insights work, and we'll get to that later as well. But here, what I'm trying to say is how dynamic and transparent the insight dashboard is, where at a glance, you can see how well your automation performs, and it's a living dashboard. So over the course of time, it would change. And if there is any anomalies, any performance indicators, a developer could always refer this and go back and identify, what anomalies or what performance indicators that they need to work on. So here are some reporting highlights that dashboarding gives. We have the dynamic dashboards like we spoke about. We have custom alerts, which is a very nice to have object where, say, you do queues, you have pending validations that are in a queue. So for sometimes in document understanding, if you have some documents in a queue, the business user wouldn't know that there are some documents in the queue. And this insight would alert the business user and the business saying, hey, there are some documents in your queue that needs your attention. So this provides some real-time feedback to the business user that they can attend quickly. You get deployment options. It's very versatile. You can have it in on-prem or automation cloud. And you can share reports across board. You can share it within your organization, out of the organization, depending on your security clearances. But it's very dynamic, and this gives very ease to the business user to share what's going on with an automation. And lastly, but most importantly, a company's ROI. So automations always measure with the KPIs and ROIs, and in introducing Insight gives it a real visual impact to it. So here, I want to talk a little bit about the integrated ML and forecasting. So if you're doing a document understanding automation, specifically where you use machine learning models, UiPath comes very much into play because you don't have, from a developer perspective, you don't have insights or visualizations to see how your automation is performing right now. You'll have, if you are doing an ML operation, you can train a model, and then you can run a batch of tests to see how your training model performs against data. You can run an evaluation pipeline to see the performance of your model, but you cannot see individual performances of the model. So what we usually do is we integrate UiPath Insights. So that would give us, a real-time analytics on, the success rate, the pass-through rate, and the model performance. So if you're using document understanding, this is a very good capability that you should amalgamate with your DU model. like I once spoke, the platform integrations. Another platform that you can integrate this with is Automation Hub. So with Automation Hub, you can integrate processes, business ROI, queues, and robots. So just to give you an example, say you have 3 robots working simultaneously on an automation. You can see a robot level performance, how much the robot processed for a given time, and you can see the queue performances and the queue statuses and what the queue success rates are. You can see what items are pending in the queues. And you can also see the process rate, what processes are going. Sometimes when you have processes, they have triggers to trigger an automation, or there are timed triggers where an automation starts within maybe a 5-minute period, a 10-minute period. So you can add them as well into the integration service to see, what did it start at a given time, how many documents it extracted within that given time, and you can get any of these matrices, and it goes to a queue, robot, process level insights you can get through this. So next, there is a UiPath video on how Insights works at a high level. Let me quickly show you this because we are a little bit time sensitive over here. So do let me know if you have any questions on it.
Are you supposed to be playing sound? Yeah,
Sorry,
I think
Tracy.
I don't think your audio is going through.
Okay, there is no audio. Okay.
Ted, I think you've got to go in somewhere and put computer sound or share that.
Let's try it again.
Started calculating the
Can you hear that?
you've received.
I thought I did, but don't hear anything right now.
Sorry, what was that?
I thought I heard something for a moment there, but I do not hear anything now.
Okay, let me see what I could do about that. Was it, did you hear that before?
I heard nothing before.
Oh, okay.
I guess while sharing the screen, there is an option, share system audio. You can check there. Not sure, but these platforms do regular updates and lot many features get changed. So
Awesome, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let me see, optimize for video clip. Okay, let's give it another go. Can you hear it
Insights,
now?
and we've pre-provided you 4 templates.
yeah,
Okay, awesome, awesome. Let's go again. Apologies on that small technical
Template.
hiccup.
Processes, queues.
Let's continue over here.
You can see this is the homepage of Insights, and we've pre-provided you 4 templates. Processes, queues, and robots are for more operational sides of analytics for things like the number of automations run, success rate, how many transactions have completed, how many hours your robots have worked, and the ROI template is a way for you to get started calculating the business benefits that you've received from RPA. So let's take a look at the processes template. This template is all about deployment health. You can see quick measures like the number of processes that have run, average job duration, as well as any long jobs, success rate of your automations, which is the #1 metric you'd like to look at to make sure that your deployment is running smoothly, a breakdown of your processes by status, very important metric here, top 10 processes with faulted jobs. This lets you know if there's any job that happens to be erroring out more than the rest, and a way to drill down into those errors. So anytime that you have a dashboard and you have key KPIs that you're interested in, but you don't want to have to keep coming back to the dashboard to check on them, you can set an alert. So you can see here, I've already set an alert on success rate. Let's take a look at it. Now my alert here is that when the success rate is greater than 90, it should send me an email. And the frequency with which this should evaluate is every day. You can obviously customize this, and the time is at 5. You can add alerts onto any single value metric, or even any other type of widget like this. Other things you can do here to make sure that you're staying informed is to schedule the delivery of the template. Now this can be done with any template or even any dashboard you've created yourself. You can pick the recurrence of the schedule, pick the time, destination. For now, it's just email, but this may extend later. By default, the email that will be set is the email of the user that schedules the dashboard for delivery. You can change this to any email that you want. It does not have to be someone who's a user of this tenant of Insights. It doesn't even have to be someone who's a member of Automation Cloud. This is your way to send dashboards to people who need to stay informed without having to have them go through adding themselves to the system, accessing the system. They can just get a nice PDF or CSV or PNG of this dashboard in their inbox. So think something like sending to an IT manager, or even sending a business dashboard to a CFO. These are the pre-existing filters, which you can change. You can also write a custom message, pick the paper size, and even pick the delivery time zone. Now, the last thing you can do for any of these tiles is to download the data, which will download as a CSV, or you can explore from here, which is a way for you to expand on the data without affecting this current dashboard. So let's go back to our homepage. Now, these are the templates, as I mentioned. If you'd like to customize them, you are free to make a copy of any of these templates to your dashboards. Now you can see here, I've already made quite a few copies. If we just click into one of them, you'll see it is an exact replica of the template, but now this is mine to customize as I see fit. So if you'd like to make any changes to this dashboard, if you want to add a new tile, you can do that. If you'd like to add a text, you can do that. If you want to change the filter, and then once you're done, you can come back to your home page, and you have the option to share this dashboard with your tenant. Tenant is everyone who has access to Insights. This is a way for you to create your own company out-of-the-box dashboards, leveraging our templates as a starting point. Now, you don't have to use our templates as a starting point at all. If you would like to start from scratch, you can just create a new dashboard, give it a dashboard name, and now this is yours. This will give you an empty dashboard and you can get started. Now, the last thing that I'm going to show you here is the ROI data set. So keep in mind, this can only be configured by admins. Now let's take a look at what the ROI data set is. So the ROI data set page is a place where your admin can enter in manual time in minutes, as in how long it would take a human to complete one iteration of the process, hourly costs for them to do so, and then up to 10 custom business benefits that you would like to measure or calculations you'd like to have as part of your formulas for ROI. So you can enter these values in per process or per queue. So queues are using transactions, and you don't want to be calculating ROI for processes that use queues in the same way, because multiple transactions make up one process, whereas some processes you just want to measure end to end as one. So if we take a look at these processes, we'll see we've entered a lot of values here. And if we wanted to add one more custom column, we can just do it this way. Now my column is added with default values of 1. Keep in mind, when you go back to the ROI template, which we'll do in a second, all of the template calculations are done per process, not per queue. So if you'd like to edit those and use queues, you'll just have to make some formula adjustments. And the templates only use these 2 default columns. So we have another video where you can see how to configure the ROI data set. So I suggest you check that out. Let's go back and take a look at our dashboard. Now this is the ROI template. This is where you can get started calculating time and money saved. So all of those calculations that you'd like to customize, you can easily do by making a copy of this template and then adding all of those custom columns you've added to the formulas. Let's quickly take a look at what that would look like. We'll make a copy here, and it'll take me right to the copy. Now, if we'd like to edit this dashboard, we will edit the time saved calculation. And here it'll take you to an Explore page. So this is the Process Manual Values Explorer, which you can think of as a general bucket for which all of the ROI values for processes are under. So we have things like the jobs view, which is everything you need to know about your jobs from Orchestrator, as well as the process manual values, so any data set for your processes for the ROI data set. If you'd like to do a combination with Q values, you have them available to you here as well, and the Qs view. So this is your way to combine calculations if needed. But let's go back to the Process Manual Values Explorer. Now, those custom columns I was showing you, is it Q, Michelle test, number of FTEs, they're all here. So if you'd like to use them in your formulas, you can just edit any of them and include them. And with that, I'd like to thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of our videos.
Let me go back. Awesome. So that was a quick synopsis of the capabilities at a high level on UiPath Insights.
Process.
And let me go. Awesome. This concludes our event today. And let me just check some messages, and Tracy, I'll let you know if there is any other messages that comes your way too. And we've got a question about the recording. Yes, we will be releasing a recording of this session, and it'll be used to the same link that you joined. So is there any questions, comments that any of you want to share with both Tracy and me? Okay, seeing that nobody has a question, Tracy, do you have any questions, comments, suggestions that you'd want to share with?
So if anyone has a specific need, definitely recommend joining the insider preview or checking out integration services, especially if your app is not the platform, or alternatively using the library. It's far easier than it probably seems, and certainly easier than having to do your stuff manually forever, because the functionality that you're wanting is not already in an activity. So don't let that limit you. There are a lot of resources to help if you do get stuck going out to the community and contacting people there, either on the Slack channel for the community or in the forums. There are lots of resources there to help, and I'll actually paste in my information there. Always happy to help somebody that's stuck.
Thank you, Tracy. Just a reminder to everybody, we have our Academy as well. If you are a developer, if you're just starting with UiPath, UiPath Academy is a great place for you to start with RPA, Insights, document understanding, practically any subject that you want to get your expertise on. We also have hands-on sandboxes to work on. You can always get UiPath on a test level and try it out for yourself. So that's it for today. Thank you once again, everyone who joined and spent your time for us to share our thoughts and knowledge. Thank you so much, Tracy, for taking time and sharing your expertise with us. I totally appreciate you. And do connect with us on our UiPath forum. Do connect with Tracy in her LinkedIn for any questions, comments. Do connect with me on my LinkedIn as well. You will find that on the UiPath Denver chapter page. So thank you, everybody, once again. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you all.